Scott's got the box. Anybody else? Yes, you can start here.
Hey, Dad.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for waiting online, or hopefully folks will be able to sign back on. Scott's going to now do the membership election. Thank you.
Okay, I wrote it down because it's kind of complicated and I didn't want to screw it up.
Okay.
All right, tonight we're going to elect 3 candidates to 3-year terms to the Greater Pine Island Civic Association's Board of Directors. But first, as we did last month, we're going to open the floor for nominations to the board. To qualify as a candidate, you must be a current member of the GPICA and have been a member of the GPICA for at least 6 months. To nominate or vote for a candidate, you must be a current member of the GPICA and have been a member for at least 30 days. You may nominate yourself. The election committee recommends current directors Sue Dowd and Connie D'Alessio for re-election and member Steve Eldridge for election. Okay, the floor is now open for nominations.
Do I have any floor nominations for anybody for the board?
We have a second to the motion to close the floor? No seconds. Any discussion? Yes?
I just have a quick clarification question. These 3 candidates are not running against one another, correct? There are 3 or more seats open on the board?
Yes, there's 3 seats open and we have 3 candidates as of now. Okay, well, I'll call the question. All in favor of closing the nominations? Anybody opposed? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion that we vote for the 3 candidates en banc. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second? Okay. Any discussion? Second. All in favor of electing the 3 candidates en banc for 3 delegate slots? Say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations and thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is our guest speaker. Would Robert Ballard? Thank you. From the Calusa Land Trust, board member. Would you please come up?
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Usually when I'm in front of a crowd on the island here, I'm talking about the early history of Pine Island. It's kind of close to my heart since I'm a native Pine Islander. But this is talking tonight about the second closest thing to my heart, which is the Calusa Land Trust, because it's all about protecting the natural land and the history and the archaeological places on Pine Island. So tonight I'm going to talk about the Calusa Land Trust, what we're all about and what we're doing to try to protect what we have on the island, and in the end, what you can do to help us protect it. Next slide, please. So the Calusa Land Trust was founded in 1976 as the Calusa Land Trust and Natural Preserve Association with 4 original members on Calusa Island, which is an island just to the east of Bokeelia. There was 4 members that created the original organization, and that was they gave the whole western part of that island to create the original trust, and that went on for about 15 years, and then in the late 1980s they were trying to expand into more broader reach and just couldn't get a good grip on it. And another fellow was trying to create an organization to do more, and he joined with the Clusa Island Association, and they incorporated into the Clusa Land Trust and Nature Preserve of Pine Island, and it was incorporated in 1989. And today we have about 2,400 acres on Pine Island and the adjoining areas under our control in our protection. Most of it's mangroves, but most of it is what we have. Next slide, please. So here's our mission statement, and people, please read this very closely, because we get all kind of inquiries about, can you buy this land? Can you buy that land? Why don't you buy this land? This is our mission statement: to protect the natural diversity and beauty of Pine Island. We acquire, preserve, and manage environmentally sensitive, historical, and archaeologically important sites. We foster the appreciation for and understanding of the environment and our past. Next slide, please. You can probably see it better, in the back slide here. The green are the areas that we have under our protection right now, the 2,400 acres. And a lot of it are the mangrove areas all on the Keys and the Sound, and some of it in Matlacha Pass. But most of it are on Pine Island and along the mangrove edges. Next slide, please. Currently, we have 222 active members. Keep that number in mind. We partner with Lee County 2020 with financial support, as well as stewardship assistance with their preserves on Pine Island. So the Pine Flatwoods, Galt Preserve, the Eagle Preserve, the other ones, we help them sometimes with activities there. And we also contribute when they have a piece of property on Pine Island that they're looking to purchase. We'll make a contribution of some money toward purchasing that, and also going to the county commissioners and supporting to the county commissioners to buy the land. We also work with the Conservation Foundation of Southwest Florida in the collection of longleaf pine seeds from our preserves for propagation and replanting on the preserves on Pine Island. We've done that, and you'll see some a little later on in the presentation. We have joint ownership with the San Captiva Conservation Foundation of York Island, and we also work with that organization to purchase some of the islands off of St. James City that we can't afford to buy, and they can. So they purchased it and protected them. So it's a kind of a joint effort. Next slide, please. Where do we get our money from? Memberships. If you want to join our organization, that costs you $25. A lot of money. 2 six-packs maybe. You can get a $25 membership, a $50 or $100, or you can give us $1,000 or whatever you want. But that's basic membership is $25 to be a part of this organization. We also get donations from people from $10 up to $5,000. Some people, we got up to $30,000 as a donation. But pretty much that's our range of donations. We also get grants from different places like LCEC and some of the other organizations for signage and stuff. We'll talk about that a little later. And we also get land donations, people who will donate their land to us. We just got one last year for $175,000. And sometimes it's land that we want to preserve. In the case of by the Chapin Preserve, we got a piece of 2 acres that joined the Chapin Preserve, and we added that to that preserve. But the one we got recently was on Stringfellow Road, and there was no strings attached. We can resell that, and it would not potentially fit in our mission statement, so we'll probably resell that and use that money to buy other land that's more in line with what we want. So that's another way we can get land. People will donate it to us. Next slide, please. We also have fundraisers. We just had our annual rummage sale at Fritz Park we have every year, and that usually generates about $2,000. not a lot of money, but it's a lot of fun for people that do it, and people chance to clean out your garages and stuff, and money goes to a good cause. And if you've seen outside or you've been around the places, we've got our annual rubber duck race coming up. This is our biggest fundraiser, and it usually generates around between $33,000 to $36,000 from that one day. It's a lot of work. It starts early on for us, and we usually net about $20,000 after we pay all our expenses and stuff out of that. So that's our biggest fundraiser that we have, and we'll talk about that, how much that money means to us and how much it doesn't mean to us later on here. And the other thing we get is we have the clothesline, like these shirts we have, and all the stuff you see, jackets and stuff, we sell. And that generates last year about $5,165. And it costs us about $2,650 to buy the stuff. So we generate about $3,000 of profits from that sale. Next slide, please. So this is from our annual meeting, sources of revenue, and you can't see it very well from this. You can probably see it better back here. But basically, we have some income from our investments. What our money we have our treasurer is very good about investing our money we have and getting a good return. We made about $83,000 in interest or dividends on our investments last year until we spend that money. So we're very conscious about how we protect that money and make it grow the best we can. That was not the case about 6 years, 7 years ago. And we started making some real good conscientious financial decisions to make that money grow for us until we're ready to spend it. But right now we have cash money about $980,000, which sounds like a lot of money. But as we'll talk a little later on, that's not much money when you start looking at trying to buy property on Pine Island these days. And we also have a lot of 2,400 acres. We have a lot of property we have to take care of, so it takes a lot of money to take care of that. Next slide, please. In our operating expenses, where we spend some of the money on an annual basis, we have fundraising costs. So when we do the duck race, we have tents, we have permits for the day, we have security for protecting the stuff when we set up overnight. We have insurance for that day. We have the porta potties. We have the rubbish removal, advertising, printing, et cetera, et cetera. So it builds up a lot of money for that day. Our land stewardship. We have people coming in those preserves, and we have to kind of protect the people from fire ants and stuff. If you get into a fire ant bed, you know what it's like. So we have fire ant control in some of those trails to keep people from getting eaten up by fire ants. And we try to mow the trails to keep them down so people don't have to walk through a high brush. So we have brush hogging, and we have chipping when we clean up the brush and stuff on our work parties to keep it down. Administration costs, just a regular thing in a year to keep the thing going. We have insurance costs for liability and stuff. We have legal fees whenever we get a piece of property and we have to do closing costs and stuff. We have legal fees attached to that. We have membership into the National Land Trust Alliance. And then brochures. We print brochures for each one of our preserves that you can go and have a trail map and stuff. And that runs almost $1,000 when we have them printed for, we're up on almost 6 preserves now. And it's getting to be expensive, but people like to have the maps and stuff and the description of the preserves they're going to be walking. And then we have mailings for mailing out memberships for the annual meeting and the duck race and other events and stuff. And we have event fees for putting on events. You have to advertise in the newspaper and stuff. Next slide, please. Grants. We get grants, again, from the Lee County Electric Co-op. They give us some nice grants. Sometimes it's matching grants for signage. If you've been to Wygart Barren Preserve or some of the other preserves, you'll see some nice, beautiful signs. They're expensive signs, but they contribute to putting those signs up, telling you about the preserve. what's on it and everything, good description signs. We also get money from the Cape Coral Community Foundation occasionally, and from the Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership. It's just some of the places we get money from. Next slide, please. We also have what we call our work fun parties. And if you haven't attended one, you should, because we work hard and we have a good time at the end. It's the second Saturday of every month from October through May. We take the summer off because we're all getting a little older and summer gets pretty hot and we get a little tired and we don't like to work hard in the summertime anymore. So we work the second Saturday of every month on one of the preserves, and we work from 9 to 12, and it's usually 9 to 11:30, and then we have pizza brought in, and everybody takes a break and tries to cool down and get together and talk, and it's a nice time. But in 3 hours or 2.5 hours, we get a lot done on those preserves. We usually have anywhere from 15 to, this last one we had almost 40 people at the cleanup. So we're getting good numbers at the attendance. And they're not all island people either. They're coming from Cape Coral, and some people just happen to be on the island for vacation, saw it, wanted to come out and do it. They're only here for a vacation and they're gone. So we get a lot of crossover people from that. Next slide, please. So this is the Wygert Barren Preserve. This is one of the first preserves outside of the St. James Creek Preserve that we actually got the property. The first one was like part of it was like 9 acres that we bought. It was going to be a mobile home park along Aura Lane. And we bought the property. It was full of Australian pines. And then we got a donation of the other 20-some acres from a landowner next door to it. He donated the property, 27 acres, to us. And now it's like 31 acres in that park. Next slide, please. So this is what it looked like when we started. Australian pines were just over, on the whole 9-acre piece was just overrun. We hired Mike Janruziak to come in with a mulching machine and grind up all those Australian pines and all the invasive trees off of that, clear all the invasives off of that section. And next slide, please. And when we were done, it opened up for all the natural native stuff to come back. And if you look at it now, and this is us doing the cleanup after the cleanup, it is a nice preserve. Next slide, please. This is the pond that's on there that we have some benches on that pond that you can sit and watch the wildlife around it. A lot of birds, alligators. Sometimes you'll see an otter and stuff in there. But a lot of wading birds, eagles fly over. You never know what you're going to see there. And this lady here, we named the trail, one of the trails after Nancy Rogers. She was a very generous donor to us. She donated like $30,000 like 3 years in a row to the organization. Very generous person. And we named a trail, nature trail for her. Next slide, please. Here's a couple of benches. You see one on the left, and then the far distance up above, at the top of the water, you'll see another bench that we put on that pond, so you can sit on that pond and watch the birds and stuff. Very nice place to go. Next slide, please. We talked about the pine seedling program. We did this with the Conservation Foundation of the Gulf Coast, where they took some pine seedlings from one of our preserves, so it's called the Bud House Preserve, and they propagated the seedlings, and then we got them and planted 100 on the Wygert Barren Preserve, where we had cleared some of the invasives off of this one lot, and we planted them on that preserve. And unfortunately, out of 100 seedlings, we got, I think, 5 that survived because we had some weather conditions that came in there. We had some serious flooding, and then the invasive plants came back before we could get them mowed again. And when he did mow, he couldn't see the little plants, so he mowed over the plants and stuff. But we have some 5 good plants coming back there now. They're about this high now. So it will work if we can do it right. And now we're ahead of the invasives coming back because we have a schedule for brush hogging that keeps them down now so that we can see where they are from the future. Next slide, please. This is the next success story, semi-success story. We're still working on this. It's called the Taylor Whittle Lake Preserve. It's across from the Catholic Church on Alcorn Street. This was a real rough jewel when we bought it, and it's 30-some acres, and it's to the east of, or to the west of Stanley Mangoes. Next slide, please. You see on the left, you see a piece of equipment. That was when we were cutting the trails. When I marked those trails with another fellow, we had to crawl, literally crawl through the brush to be able to tie the strings so that he could mark the trail where he could go and cut a brush, the trail you see on the right-hand side through there. It was so thick. And we were able to get the trail cut around the perimeter of the north section of the property. And it is a beautiful place right now until Hurricane Ian got a hold of it and pretty much covered the trails again. And we got in, and now we got the trails cleared again, but we still have a lot of work to do. And we're working on a project, a potential grant to go in and do some serious restoration for that preserve. And it's like, what, Judy, was it 200-some thousand or 300?
It's closer to 3 if we do the education and the plannings.
So it's close to $300-some thousand is what the total cost to restore that, to go in and grind up a lot of those invasive trees and stuff to clear it, and then we're going to replant it and do some storm mitigation stuff along the salt flats and stuff. And we will have to match some of that with the 20-some% match with not only working volunteer hours, but also some cash flow in it. So it's an expensive proposition. And when we talked about that $900-some thousand we have, there's a lot of money required to do some maintenance. The other one that we have that's a lot of expensive is St. Jude Trail. Anybody that goes to St. Jude Trail, you know at the end of that trail is the boardwalk, or was a boardwalk. Ian took care of that too. And it's gone, part of it, and we're going to try to restore that. And we have a contract now to do that, but it's $93,000 to do that. $93,000 is a lot of money. We can't buy property, we have to fix that. So we got a contract signed, we're waiting to get all the permits to do that. So getting the property is one thing, maintaining is another. Next slide, please. So this is the trails at Taylor Whittle Lake, and it's a beautiful piece. There's some big old pines that are probably 2.5, 3 foot in diameter on that property, along with some oaks and stuff. And on the right you see the Whittle Lake, or a little slough there. But a lot of good different terrain in that preserve that's really nice. And if you get a chance to walk it, it's a nice place to walk and see. Next slide, please. So here's our challenges. We need to get Islanders more involved. We're a small, all-volunteer, non-for-profit. None of us get paid like some of the others, like the organization up in Osprey and over in Sanibel. They all are paid people. We don't get paid. We have limited dollar resources to spend. We have high-priced land values on this island, and we have limited inventory of native habitat on the island to purchase, which makes it even more challenge for us to get. Next slide, please. And as we acquire more of this land, the operating cost of maintaining and the additional parcels go up, and the increased burden is put on our senior group to do the work. We're trying to get younger people involved, but right now it's us, most of us 60 and over that's doing it. And I'm over this 70, going on almost the 80 group now, and it's getting harder to do this stuff. But we all plug around, and we do a lot in the 3.5 hours we're out there. Next slide, please. So the bottom line is, the land that goes into the land trust or one of the other land conservation groups means that it's removed from the development market, and it protects the natural and ecological features of Pine Island that we cherish so much, which is why we should do it if we can. Next slide, please. And here's the reality. There's 225 active members in the Clusa Land Trust, donating $40,900. Of those 222 active members in the Clusa Land Trust, 120 are Pine Island members with Pine Island zip codes. I'm sorry, 120 are non-Pine Island, 102 are Pine Island members. So most of our organization are non-Pine Island members. And they're contributing more money than the Pine Island people are. That's the true reality. Next slide, please. So what can you do to help? Well, supposedly for the 2022 census that we got, there's 8,566 residents on Pine Island. If we could just get 4,000 of those members to join the land trust, times $25 membership, that's an additional $100,000 a year to the organization. And it grows. It's not going to do what we need, but we're looking at two pieces of property right now. One of them is $2.5 million. $2.5 million, 50 some acres. But it is prime Pine Island. Natural pines, natural palmettos, not much invasives on it, but it's also prime development. And once it's bought by developers and pushed, we won't get it back. And we don't have the money to do it. You know, we only have $900-some thousand. That's not even half of what the cost is. And the reality is we have to go to somebody else to try to do it. And we're working on trying to get 2020 to do it, trying to get the owners to go to 2020 to buy it. And we're making progress, and hopefully that'll happen. But it's not an easy process. But once it goes to 2020, CLT doesn't have it. It's 2020 Parks and Recreation, or Lee County Parks and Recreation. That's the sad part. But it is protected, that's the good part. That's the reality that we're in here. And that's what's happening when you've got a small organization like us. We are limited in what we can do. But that's the reality of what's going on. The other one is we're looking at, we just got, my board members don't even know it because I just got the appraisal for another property we're looking at in Bokeelia. It's been in the family since the early 1900s. It's 5 acres, and I just got the appraisal for $500,000. $500,000. Prime property, historical property, but it's $500,000. That's what we're up against. Next slide, please. So, this is how you can follow us. We have the ClusaLandTrust.org website. We have the Facebook page, Clusa Land Trust. We have the Clusa Land Trust newsletter. If you become a member, you get that. And you can follow us in the Pine Island Eagle. Next slide, please. So we're working to save some of Pine Island for tomorrow. We're doing what we can. We just need your help to do it. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
So with the constant issue of maintaining.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, the folks online can't hear, so if you could use the microphone, that'd be great.
So with the, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So with the constant maintenance of our properties with all the invasives and whatever, how much of our budget going forward, and you start projecting, that's going to be a bigger and bigger piece, or, you know, because it sounds like just the maintenance alone, and hurricanes are a reality of our future. So we going to have to expect $20,000-$30,000 annually to do some of this?
Yeah, it's going to increase. Right now, what we've done, you know, like the Taylor Willow Lake, we haven't gone in to get an outside source to go in and clean those invasives like we did at Weigert Barren. When we did Weigert Barren, I think it was $80,000 to go in and clear those invasives out. That was 10, 12 years ago. But once they were out, then volunteers have been in keeping it clean, with the exception of the east side. And we hired a local contractor to go in and clean the east side, and it only cost us like $6,000 to do that, to clean them. But once they're clean, then we go in and we make sure any invasives come out, we pull them out or cut them down and treat them and stuff to keep the invasive down. But you got to get ahead of them in the first place to do it. But yeah, you're talking about a budget going up. Now, this nice thing about this piece that we're talking about up here, the 50-some acres, is there's a very small amount of that that's invasive at this point. And most of it's along Stringfellow Road and some of it's on the southwestern corner. So it's minor. The biggest part of it is just beautiful pines and palmettos. That's the nice part about it. Yeah. Yes, sir. Hold on a second, let me get a microphone so they can, because there's people on the web here.
Is there anything that y'all do to promote membership on the island? I mean, advertise and put things out to get people to join the organization?
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't have what's called a serious advertising. We do presentations at different places. We're out around different places, but no, we don't have a campaign as such.
Brochures that we could get and maybe hand out to people?
We have brochures, yes, we have tons of brochures.
I'd like to get a handful and start passing them out.
Sure, we have.
We could,
Yeah.
like you say, if we could get a bunch of members, it'd be a great thing.
Yeah, we have plenty of brochures and stuff. I have,
Good.
outside here, we have tons of stuff.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh,
Come back to the microphone, so thank you.
we go.
Yeah, if anybody has a question, I appreciate it if you would be able to line up in the back.
Hi, I live in Flamingo Bay, and I know you have a property across the road from there. And several years ago, you were going to put in a kayak launch. Is that the same?
No, that's not us.
Oh, okay.
That's the Conservation Foundation of the Gulf Coast. That's not us.
Great. Well, I was just wondering if that was still on, because I really hate to see it being developed at all. But that's for
No,
sure.
that's not us.
Thank you.
I have two questions. First of all, I believe I read recently that Calusa Land Trust was given or acquired a piece of property up in Bokeelia using funds from Cape Coral. Is that correct? No?
Not
I read it in the Pine Island Eagle. Maybe it was another.
No.
Second-
There's a piece that 2020 just purchased,
Okay.
and it's up by Smokehouse Bay. It's the old, it was an old nursery, Royal Palm Nursery,
Okay.
that Danny Yates Nursery owned.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's not closed yet because the part of the deal was the nursery has to remove all the palms and stuff off of it before they'll close the deal.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hey, yeah, Bob, I have a couple of questions. Thanks for your passion, I appreciate it. As a finance person, I wonder if when you buy property, are you a cash buyer only, or can you literally mortgage for property? You understand what I'm saying? Like, could you take your $100,000 and buy $1 million worth of property and then pay it off over time? Or are you just a cash buyer?
Yeah, so far we just been a cash buyer.
Okay.
I say that early on. I just read some of the stuff, history, and early on they were doing some of that. They were actually getting some angel supporters that they would take a loan out to buy Big Jim Creek and some of the other places, and then they would pay it off. But we haven't done that. We cash buyer so far.
And then my second question is, could you literally just take us all the way through a transaction that was purchased, and just sort of tell us how it kind of all happens?
Okay. Well, normally what we would do, two ways that happen. Either one, the landowner will approach us saying we have a piece of property that we're interested in selling it or to the land trust, or we'll find out about it. Two ways of coming to us. From there, we go to our acquisitions and planning committee to go out and look at it. And we have and I was going to do that, I didn't do it. We have a evaluation sheet that we actually look at the property and we evaluate the property for where it's at. Is it contingent to one of our other preserves? What kind of terrain is it in? How much land is it? Is it got a lot of invasives on it? Does it have a lot of native plants on it? What's it?
Some of the threats, how strong the threats for development are.
Yeah. So there's a lot of criteria. So there's like 2 pages of criteria, and we evaluate and have a score sheet. And depending on what that score sheet is, depends on whether we go forward with it or not. So if we go forward with it, then we go and work with the owners, saying, okay, what's your price for it? Are you willing to work with us on a reduced price deal, a donation? How do you want to work this? You know, once we come to what they want to do as a price, then we have to decide as a board, and this is still in the acquisition and planning stage, what the offer is. The acquisition and planning board will say, okay, we think that's a good deal. They'll vote to say, okay, we can offer it to the full board. The full board then will say, yes, we're going to go forward for purchasing it, or we say, no, we don't want it. We can't afford it. And then if it say go forward, then we go into negotiations with we go into the sales contract with them, and the purchase price go through the lawyers to do the title search and stuff, and purchase the property.
So I also noticed that there's a lot of property seems like it was purchased down by St. James City, maybe more than if you looked up in Bokeelia. Is that a coincidence? What's going on there?
Probably early on there was a lot more activity with the board of directors in St. James early on than what there is now. There was, quite frankly, there was a lot more money in St. James early on the board of directors and stuff, and a lot more activity down there than what there is now. It's changed a little bit now, I think.
Have you guys ever worked with Florida Gulf Coast University or any of their environmental or land stewardship programs there? I'm thinking, talking about getting younger folks involved, maybe there's a way to get students out and, you know, they've got strong backs too, right?
Yeah, yes we have. Funny you mentioned that, we've got 2 students we've already finished one with one, and we got 2 students inquired about working with their program to do their, what's the program called? Community service program here, yeah.
Got a couple master's candidates out here.
Yeah. Johnny,
Hi there.
jump up high, Johnny.
So I'm Joan Rosenberg, I'm the treasurer, and I just want to share about a transaction that everyone knows about practically. It's the Taylor Willow Lake Preserve on Elkhorn, just south of the Catholic Church. And I was new to the treasurer, and we already had the Taylor Willow, the Willow Lake area, and this couple called the Taylors donated a piece of property that just came down to a point. And then we had this beautiful piece of property that had a 50-foot entrance and opened out into this beautiful forest. So it was owned by a consortium, as I remember 10 years ago, in Kansas City or someplace like that. Obviously, developers had bought this years ago with an idea to developing it. They had this 50-foot driveway out to the back in the beginning of the forest. So in the end then, we made an agreement and I wired them $165,000, which I'll never forget. But it was about half the cost. It was what we might call a bargain sale. And it was, they agreed that that's what they would ask for this beautiful piece of property. And the interesting thing is then my job is to make it exempt from taxation. I apply to the county. And the minute I did that, that kind of a property, I get a little communication saying, only $165,000. They want to know, how did that happen? And of course the answer is because they believed in our mission and they were willing to take the cut so that we could have it as a land trust. But everyone that comes through, I apply for an exemption and the county pays attention and want to know what the purchase price was and what the value of it is. And if there's a huge discrepancy, we have to answer to that, of course. So I'm open for any kind of questions about that. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the deals that we can make, and some landowners will do, is they can sell it at a bargain price and take the difference between the selling price and what the market value price is as a donation price from the income tax. Not a lot of people are savvy to that, and they just think that the more money they get, the better off they are, but they pay it to the federal government where they can take it and give it to us and write it off as a donation to the federal government and reduce their income taxes, or else they can pay it all on a bigger share to the federal government. So that's the way to get around some of these higher prices, if you can get people that understand that.
Yeah, my name is Frank Potter. I'm the newly elected president of the board. One of the things that people need to keep in mind is that we have the land in perpetuity. So a portion of our budget we need to set aside every year so that we have an endowment account so that in the future, like Maureen was saying, that the maintaining the lands in the future, we have to keep in mind that it's not just while we're around, it's going to be in perpetuity.
Thanks, Frank. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, everyone. We have stuff out front here if you want to get stuff on some of the preserves we have. And there's also a brochure on the CLT and where we came from and what we are and everything. So and we also have membership forms out there if you want to become a member. And we have duck tickets. So thank you very much. Judy.
So we're really happy that the Civic Association asked Robert to come up here and talk to you today, because not only is this land conservation important for our aesthetics, but the work that you do as the Civic Association relating to development and water quality is really tied into what we do too, because as those habitats are protected, it really goes a long way to protecting the water that gets into our estuaries adjacent to us. So the relationship is kind of interconnected, and it's really important, and that's why we need to work together. And the other thing that you might be interested to know, what do you think your hours of volunteer time are worth on a federal level now, for a federal grant? How much do you think your volunteer time is worth? $30 an hour per person. So when we do the grant applications, and we hope we're going to learn how to do that more efficiently, when you come and participate in our work parties or come and help us with our duck race and stuff like that, your time really does help us match the dollars that come in as grant contracts and cash to the program. Thanks.
I just have one more thing. Lately you might have seen, for those of you who have investments, and now it's the time that you have to think about required minimum distributions. They have now a program where if you take your money and directly give it to a 501c3 that's passes all the tests, you do not, it is part of your required minimum distribution, but it's going to your favorite charity if it qualifies. I'm just talking about an RMD that you might consider dividing part of it and giving it to a charity, and it will be a tax advantage for you, and somebody else gets a good thing. So, just something to think about with your tax account.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Much appreciated. Okay. So the next item up is announcements. One of them is our ongoing GPICA meetings will be held at the First Baptist Church of Pine Island, which we have the address that's just on the outside, but it's at 5363 Avenue D in Bokeelia. It's not very far, so instead of at the stop sign you turn one way, we're going to go the other way. It's across the street from the elementary school. So it's a little easier for us. It's a smaller area, and I think it's going to be a really nice change. We'll be able to have all our board members sitting up front and present, so you can see exactly who represents the Pine Island rather than just me. So we're looking forward to that, but we would definitely like to say thank you to the Methodist Church for housing us for the last year since Ian and giving us their time for us to be here and opening the doors and be welcoming. So, thank you. Also, things of note is the Greater Pine Island Alliance is looking for help for their Camp Noah for the kids on the island. They're seeking volunteers for the camp for the elementary school age children who have been impacted by disaster, Ian, and provide them with a variety of ways to play, process, and heal from their experience. The camp is going to be in March 18th through the 22nd. And if you go to their website at GPI Alliance, ALLIANCE.org/camp/Noah/. If you're able to volunteer for that period of time, it's just a few days. You do have to undergo a background check to participate in the little program and attend a training section. So that's to help the kids on the island. Also, we also have a request for, Camp Noah. It has to do with our water quality. The FDPEPs of Charlotte Harbor Aquatic Preserves they're based out of Punta Gorda. They're trying to coordinate a multi-county volunteer water quality monitoring program from North Lemon Bay to Southern Pine Island Sound and Matlacha Pass. And they're reaching out for volunteers for their group, and that's about all the information I have regarding them at this point, but they're also a volunteer for the water quality for Pine Island, which is necessary for everything altogether. Does anybody have any questions? Well, if everybody is... Are you collecting these ballots? Oh, the ballots.
No, since there was no election held, we don't souvenirs.
Well, it was held, we just all voted.
We'll put the box in the bag so you can just drop them in there.
And we'll
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll collect them.
Because there was 3 seats available for election and only 3 names, and so we did unanimous consent at this point. Yes, ma'am?
Does anybody want
Oh. Thank you, thank you. If you would like more information, please see her out in the lobby after the meeting. Yes, ma'am?
Do you have any updates on the developments that we talked about a few months ago, the presentations that were here a couple of months ago? Any progress on either of those?
Can you specify which ones? Because unfortunately there's many.
Maria Drive, the one that was where by Sweeney's.
Several of them have gone quiet, and what I mean by quiet is that they're trying to get something either through the county to go to their next step, and sometimes until they take that next step, at this point we don't know what exactly is happening with them. We are developing, getting a larger than just one or two people that are following these developments. Hopefully in the near future we'll be able to give a more proper update on those. And if you would like to volunteer, come see us. We'll always, none of us will say no to a volunteer. We all need those to keep our organizations up and running and efficiently going. So if there's no other questions.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, that's my favorite part. Thank you very much for coming.